Good evening, all. Hope you're doing well. We are in a state of fear, and what's actually happening with the indices is that they're slightly misbehaving on the FXCM QDB entry and exit system. Normally, it's really accurate. Today, it's been a little bit naughty. Um, Oil and gold were okay, but the indices were just misbehaving. So I think what could be happening, we could be setting up for some risk off event this week potentially, because what should normally happen is that when the herd go long, they shouldn't be getting paid, and we saw that happen. So I think it might be setting up for something. It's a little bit fishy, and whenever something's quite fishy, when it comes from the FXCM trading station and the herd get paid, it's a little bit of a warning sign. And I'll show you what I mean. I'll go through the indices and I'll show you. So just to summarize, we're in a state of fear. The big picture is getting reduced, and we're going towards neutral. If you remember, we were minus 37, which was astronomically skewed, and we're now minus 15. So we're getting close to zero. If we go to zero and then a bit beyond and above, then it will tell us that the herd are net long. Okay, if they're going to be net long, it's going to be bearish, very bearish. Every time we've seen that happen, it's always coincided with a big heavy decline on the indices. And the last time it happened was COVID, and the last time it happened before that, it was likely to do probably with US China, those tariffs. We had that trade war, and it just basically coincides with big macro risk events. And the way that it could be going, it could be setting up for the US elections. I know it's a long time away, but it is going towards neutral, and we could go positive. Okay, now when we do, what I'm going to recommend is that we'll look to go long, and then we'll then have to just have to be very careful about our entry. So the idea is that we're going to go. This will then turn red. Then we could be extreme fear. Okay, and once everyone's like thrown off completely, and everyone's got ejected, then we'll enter. And it's the extreme fear is that we are monitoring, because after extreme fear, we can't go any worse than that. We can go back to fear, then we'll be complacency, and then we'll be optimism, then euphoria. Okay, so we'll look to enter extreme fear. So that sounds like, wow, that's a crazy tactic, but that's the best time to enter. Okay, because we'll have a big low, we'll have a big decline, we'll get a really good low entry, and then up we go. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to bring the trading station around. Oil, we made the crossover here, and we've really pumped. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So see, for example, DAX, I was saying about they're getting rewarded. They've gone long, so we should be above this candle. We shouldn't be above this candle here, because they'd gone long, and admittedly, it did fall to punish them, but we went up anyway. So that's slightly naughty, slightly fishy. Now if I zoom out, I'll show you what I mean about getting the entry. Because at this point, are we going to be flipping? Yeah. So at this point, it would be extreme fear, and then that's where we're going to look to enter. So if you want to join us in this adventure of ours, then you'd be more than welcome, and I'll definitely signal our entry and our stop loss when this happens, because I basically I got quite annoyed myself, because I said to everyone, this is what we're going to do, but we didn't actually do it. Didn't pull the plug, and up we go. And so we're looking, stop loss below the low, below the swing lows. You're looking at an astronomical trade, there. So that's the static flip. So that's what we're going to be looking for. And it's going to just take its time. It might even be up to November, which is really not ideal. But we could theoretically just chop until we have this big risk event. And alternatively, the herd are just going to try and buy the dip. So we have to be careful, but we'll be on the right side because we've got the risk calc. And we're going to wait for that to go red probably spend a bit of time above red, then we'll go green, and then we should hold green, and then that's our entry for long. Okay, so let's come back to that. So slightly naughty DAX. Let's go to the US 30. And sideways, so nothing to report there. It would tell me to avoid. I've got a feeling it's probably going to rally because, you know, we are by the big picture. Just that we got that resistance from the fact that they'd sold. So we should be above. It should be a support. So if we go above that, we're probably going to use it as a springboard. And boom. But, you know, we've got a very, very busy week and a potentially risk-off week as well from all that data that we're going to get. S&P. And so likewise, you know, they're going long here. So we should be below this box. I said to watch out for 5350 because that's the level that we should be below because they've gone long at 5350 and yet we're 5362. So this is being fishy and DAX is being fishy. So that tells me something could be brewing because it's unusual to see the FXM guys get paid. And gold. And it's going to be a fairly quick video because the robot didn't open up any trade today. So that's okay. And we've made the flip to buy so we can draw a box. And then I guess we can quickly talk about the new addition on the sheet. And there we go. So we should be above that, and we are. So that's fine. So that's a tick in the box. That's okay, right? This big hot move, very crazy, huge, isn't it? Oh, that's quite scary. But we should be above that box because they sold it, like I say. So it's a little bit sideways now, which isn't really ideal. We want them to be selling if you're looking for long, so you don't really want to go sideways. So just in terms of the sheet, we've got lots of things to talk about, but the new update is the time-stamped basket sentiment. Obviously at this time of day there's not going to be much movement, so this is one of the reasons why I'm doing the sentiment update in the evening, is that it encapsulates everything that's been, and we can see that there's not been much movement. If you think about it for yourself, you probably wouldn't be opening trades at 8 o'clock PM UK time. It's just you wouldn't do it because you're coming into Asia. You're probably likely going to be asleep, and then you want to be sort of be looking to open trades in the morning when it's a bit more active. So it's probably not the best time to give you a demo. But the idea is that what you want to do is try and get the columns to match. So see, we've got a discrepancy between the USD because they've gone long, but they're selling over the last 4 hours. This is from 10 PM daily close, and so you know we've got a mismatch, but we do have a match on Swiss franc, and I think everything is out of bonk, which tells us that what a choppy day we would have had just from that. Yeah, everything is out of bonk. You can see no movement there. We're just basically flat. Pound and Kiwi. They're short. Oh, Aussie. Okay, that's fine. So that's okay for Aussie longs, right? Because the big view from the close is that they're shorted it, and the last 4 hours they've shorted it. So that's a confirmation that they were short, and they've been adding short the last 4 hours. They haven't flip-flopped. They've held on to that bias and they've added. So that's really important. Okay, so you could look for Aussie longs. Look at your setups, look at your technical charts, look at your fundamental macro. Does it make sense to buy Aussie? It could be a good one, but what are you going to pair it with? You could trade against USD, but we've got a mismatch on the USD. So that's a sort of like use case scenario that you can use. It's got massive potential, and then you just really ideally just getting the columns to match. It's very straightforward, and that's it. I don't think I need to talk about the robot because it hasn't opened up any trades, which is fine. That's okay. It's quite cool in the way it knows when to open trades and when not to. It detects ideal trading conditions. So that in itself is really cool. And we've got potentially a trade set up going on in the Discord, which is a bubble trade. So have a look at that. It might be a good one. It's just a pair that I don't normally trade, so I might not take it. But for more information, check the Discord, and you can have a look at that setup. And it's got some levels there as well for where you put your stop loss, where to take your TP. Hopefully it's obvious. If it's not, then let me know. It's just basically based on supply and demand, where we're going to target the supply above, and that's going to be our TP. So something to have a look at. And I wish you a good night, and I'll speak to you guys tomorrow. And don't forget that we've seen some very strong moves already, so it's probably going to be a bit of a crazy week, okay? And also the indices have been misbehaving as well, so we could be setting up some potentially some selling off after the CPI, and then we're going to probably rally after Powell. It's likely that's going to happen, isn't it? But we'll have to wait and see. So trade safely, and I'll speak to you soon.